Hey YouTube, today we're going to look at another firearm and tell the story about how I acquired it. But before we get started, I'm going to show you that this pistol does not have anything in it and we are clear to make this video. So what are we going to talk about today? We're going to talk about another firearm that I own and how I acquired it. I've done a video recently about how I acquired a firearm. I asked people if they wanted to hear about it and they said tell us. So I'm going to tell you a couple of these stories about how I acquired these firearms. So we're going to start off with what this is. So this is one of my favorite firearms that I have. This is a Colt 1911. This is a military issued one. And if you look really close, I'll show you some of the close-ups of it. I've showed it before. This is a Colt M1911. If you look real close, it says United States property right here on the side. It has a serial number. It says model of 1911 U.S. Army. And on the other side, it just has the Colt Rampant Pony sign and has all the patent stuff. So what is this? This is an original 1911. And when I say original, I mean original. This particular example was manufactured in 1918, and this is what is referred to as the Black Army. So the Black Army is normally, and this is under normal circumstances, was manufactured after June of 1918. So it was at the very end of World War I. It was when Colt was trying to rush these out the door because they couldn't keep up with the demand of the military contract, and they started doing a couple shortcuts on manufacturing, and the finish is what they what really suffered. They didn't really prep them as well, and the finish came right off of them. And if you find one that has any type of finish on it at all, you really got a cool gun. So if you'll notice, this one's got probably about 50 to 60% of the finish left on it. So this is a true Black Army. One of the true telltale signs to look at them. This isn't all exact science, folks. I'm not a historian. I'm not a Colt 1911 expert, but I do know where this gun came from. I'm going to tell the story. One of the true telltale signs is the United States property on the real Black Armies will always be on this side of the frame. The earlier ones, you can find it right here on this side of the frame, but the United States property on the Black Army is almost always going to be right here above this trigger guard on the right hand side if you have the gun facing in a safe manner. So the original 1911s, they had a flat mainspring housing. They had this very small beaver tail sticking out here from the grip safety. They have a full-size hammer on them. If you'll notice, this ejection port is not lower down at all. It's not undercut under the the trigger guard. It's got a real long trigger on it. This particular one has a lanyard loop on it because it's a military issued gun, but about as basic of a 1911 as they get. And this is the original 1911. It's got very horrible sights on it. These GI sights, just the basics of the basics. This is what got the whole 1911 game started. I've got videos going into the whole history of this gun and everything like that, but I'm just showing you some of the quick basics. So how did I acquire this gun? So ever since I was a little kid, I always wanted an Army 45. That's what I used to call them, an Army 45. And my dad had a very horrible example, now that I look back at it, of an old Colt military issue. And it's a shame to say I don't even remember much about it, but I do remember it had these big old target sights on top of it. And I always thought it was a cool gun, and that made me really start liking those guns. And as I grew up, I just always wanted one, but the price on these things are, just absolutely outrageous. And you really have to, if you really want to get a true all-matching one with all the correct stuff and stuff, you really have to know what you're looking at. And fortunately, I do, at this point in my life, really do know what I'm looking at when you look at these guns. And to get the type of gun that I wanted, it was going to be an absolutely outrageous price. And I just really wasn't, at the time, willing to spend that type of money. Well, I used to go to a gun show all the time, and there was a guy there that specialized in these. He had these all set up, all in these boxes that look like the ones that came in wrapped in the wax papers, and every one of his thing, he is an expert on them. Every one of his guns are all correct and everything. And I used to go by and just look at them. I became somewhat friendly with the guy, and he'd be like, why don't you just buy one of these things? I was like, because they're crazy. There's thousands of dollars for one of these guns. And I mean, you can go get a 1911 today. It has a lot more features to it. It's not quite as fragile, and I don't want to tell you this is fragile. This gun's over 100 years old and will still fire perfectly. I actually made a video a couple months ago firing this one at the range. I haven't shot it in a while, but it's got horrible sights on it. It doesn't have the best trigger as compared to the modern day 1911. So why, for the thousands of dollars you're going to invest in something like this, you could really get something that could really get some good use out of it, would look real nice and stuff like that. I just never thought that it was really a great investment at the time to put it into this. I'm not like a super high-end collector or anything like that. It's just something that I wanted. So I just sat there and gawked at him every time I would go to the gun show. I mean, he'd have a whole table set up and everything. Well, I really got into the Colt revolvers there for a while, and I started buying when I could, Colt pythons, the original Colt pythons. Really started getting into those, and one of my old neighbors, he was a swap meet person or flea market person, whatever you call it. He would go sell these antiques and stuff, and he acquired one of these Colt 1911s, and he came home one day and he showed it to me. I was like, wow, that's pretty cool. But the gun was a really, really bad example. It was pitted really bad all over, and it had been refinished, and it was a horrible refinish job in my opinion. And I asked him, I was like, what are you going to sell that thing? What are you going to sell that thing for? He goes, well, it's not a good one, and people are going to pick this thing apart where I go. He goes, I'll sell it to you for $700. I believe that's what the number that came out. It was either $600 or $700, whatever it was. I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to do it. I'll spend that on, just to say I at least have an old Colt 1911. So I bought it, and I had it for a couple years, and I shot it a couple times and all that. But I could say I had a Colt 1911. Well, fast forward a couple years later, there was a guy that had a 1960s Colt Python that he listed for sale. And of course, I was all over the Colt Python thing, and I contacted him. I was like, what do you want to sell your Colt Python for? And it was kind of a cool gun. It was a 6-inch blued one, and it had these really weird engraved wood grips. It was the factory grips that somebody had done some like engraving on the grips, and I thought it looked pretty cool. And he goes, oh, I'd really like to trade it for something. And I was like, well, what would you want to trade that for? He goes, I don't know, just make me an offer. So I sat there and thought about it and everything, and I asked him, I was like, I have a Colt 1911. It was a military issued one. It says United States property. It's kind of rough. It's been refinished. Would you be interested in that? He goes, absolutely. The history behind that thing, I would absolutely do that. So we went and we made the trade, and I ended up with the 6-inch Colt Python. And I already had a couple of them at the time, but I ended up with that one. And I was happy. Everything was good. I was never happy with that Colt 1911, and I didn't hide anything from the guy. I showed him. I mean, you didn't have to be a rocket scientist to look at it and see that it was a refinished thing. They refinished over the pitting and everything like that. So I kept the Colt Python for a while, and I was at the gun show and looking at this guy's stuff, and he goes, are you ready to buy one of those Colts yet? I was like, I'm not ready to buy one yet. And he goes, won't we do some swapping around? He goes, you always have nice stuff. What is it you have you think you could offer for one of these? He goes, which one of these would you want? And he had two of them that I was interested in, because I wanted an actual Black Army. And he had this one, and he had one of them that was very similar to it. And I was like, I'd be interested in one of those two. And he goes, well, the other one is off the table. That one's already sold. The gentleman's coming to pick it up this weekend from my home. I was like, okay, well, this is the one I'd be interested in. And I cannot remember what the asking price was, but it was a lot. It was an absolute fortune. And he goes, what do you want to trade? I was like, I mean, I've got some Colt stuff. He goes, well, I like Colts. What do you have? And I was telling him about this Python that I acquired. And it was a late 60s Colt Python, the one I traded for the other one. He goes, well, come over to my house next weekend. We'll talk about it. So I brought the gun over to his house and showed him the Colt Python and everything. And he goes, man, I just always wanted one of these Colt Pythons. He goes, but I mean, the price of these things through the roof. I just don't understand how anybody could spend that much money on just the .357 Magnum revolver. It's just crazy. And I was like, well, I think the same thing about one of these old Colt 1911s. I was like, I always wanted one of those. I just can't believe somebody to spend that much money on a really, beat up old 1911 that you can get like a much more modern one for. If you put that kind of money into a modern one, you can get like a Wilson or a Nighthawk or something like that. He goes, I hear you. He goes, well, what do you want to do? I was like, why don't we just swap them even, man? I have something you want, you have something I want. Why don't we just do that? He goes, I just always wanted one of those, and I'm probably into this one a lot less than I would be if I bought a Python right now. And you got to remember, those Pythons are really hot because of the popularity of them not being made anymore. It's not like today where they still make them. So he goes, you know what? We're both happy. Let's just do it. So we shook hands, and I traded the Python that I traded the original Colt 1911 for this, even up. And I mean, everything about this thing's correct. It has the correct magazine on them, the two-tone magazine. Now, this one's got a little bit of a cracking right up here, but I mean, you can still fire a couple rounds out of this. I just don't use this magazine when I fire it. And this gun is absolutely perfect. It's got some wear on the front strap and the back strap, which is understandable for a gun that's 110 years old or whatever this thing is. But I always wanted one of these, and this is in just about the perfect shape of what I wanted. I mean, this light doesn't show it up well, but it's got about probably 50 to 60% of the finish left on it. And this is an absolutely amazing firearm that I never thought I could own, and I ended up owning it. And if you do the math, if you follow along in the story, I probably have between $600 and $700 in this gun. Now, granted, I've had it for years, and there was a lot of steps and a lot of patience that led up to that. But I probably owned this thing for about $600 or $700, and I've had it for many, many, many years, and I'm going to own it for many, many years to follow. But I know a lot of people showed interest in seeing how I acquired some of this stuff, and not every one of these expensive firearms folks that I acquire like some crazy deal. I was just picking out a couple of these that were really cool stories, and tell you how I acquired them. I just figured somebody'd want to listen to some cool things that I've done in these deals I've done. But you can have a Colt 1911 for about $600 or $700 if you have a little luck on your side and you make a few good moves over the years and all that. You can acquire it. But that's what I got in this one. No, I'm not going to sell it for that. I wouldn't sell it for $6,000, just to let you know. I don't sell firearms. I have no interest in selling my stuff. I just love owning something like this, piece of history. Big 1911 guy, not a huge collector guy, but in certain things, they really do have my heart. And this is the old Colt 1911 really does. And 1911s in general, I'm very interested in, and revolvers I'm very interested in. But anyway, folks, let me know what you think of this little story. If you want to hear a couple more of them, let me know. I've got a couple of them that are pretty wild out there on how I acquired a couple of these firearms. But thank you very much for watching my video today, and you folks have a great day.